It's all George Bush's fault, don't you know, Mr.
BIRB, blame it on Bush.
First, I'd like to say that it's quite an honor for me. I'm a retired soldier. Spent 20 years in special ops. I did General Petraeus, we signed my Brown Star. Right. But what's most important to me, that almost brings tears to my eyes, is that I know that that war that we fought was well worth to see democracy in action. The two fine, upstanding men here today represent you, because I was at a place where they didn't have these rights, and we didn't have those types of civilizations or those types of understandings. When we return to America, it makes me very proud. Now, having said that, I pose this to both candidates, and I would respect first candidate Renacci, and then Congressman Boccieri.
I keep finding a way. I back off because when I come forward, the microphone.
Yes, sir. Basically, it's this. Candidate, when you mentioned one of the 4 pillars of the Republican Party, it stuck to me because you mentioned that this was one of the most important things to you was a strong military. And that if you would go to Congress, that this is what aspect that we know that you would carry as best, that you would support the United States military and its actions overseas. But as with Congressman Boccieri, who's also a decorated combat veteran, as myself, I must ask you, there'll be returning veterans coming back from Iraq soon, and other soldiers that are deployed to Afghanistan. For both of you, what are your policies first on the returning vets like myself, happen to be unemployed, in case anybody's looking for an old soldier? What type of employment incentives do you plan on initiating due to this rehabilitation that's coming in? The soldiers going to be hurt, but they like myself, looking for work, wanting to participate in our American system of government. 2, what are your plans, the overall plan for both the invasion and recovery of the Iraq country that we have invaded, and also for the ongoing conflict in Afghanistan and possibly Somalia, and even terrorist acts here in the United States? And again, I thank you for your time, and I'm very proud to be here with all of you. Thank you.
I appreciate your service as we talked when you first got here. You know what? I did not serve, and as I've always said, I did not serve in the military. But I honor your service. I honor Mr. Boccieri's service in the military. Every uncle, my father, my grandfather all served in the military. I'm a strong believer in the military, and I believe we need to take care of those who serve us to protect our freedoms. So you always have that with me. The other thing you always have is I'm also a firm believer in taking care of them when they come back. So I am a firm believer that in that. I've also said, you heard one of my 4 pillars, that I've said that I believe in a strong military. I don't believe in all the earmarks that Mr. Boccieri has helped push through to this district, because we are financially, the federal government is financially in trouble right now. But I do believe in this earmark. I've said this in my campaign speeches all along. I believe anytime there's earmarks that can come back and produce jobs that are military viable and help our military, that's the only earmark that I'm going to be for. So hopefully that answers your question.
Well, it's a great question. And when our soldiers return from battle, so let me back up. When they go to battle, they need everything is necessary to make sure that they return safely, honorably, and soon. And when our soldiers go into battle, they need to make sure that they have the right body armor, the right night vision goggle equipment, that they have the right equipment to be safe in the battle and to come home safely, honorably, and soon. When we send our men and women in to do our country's business, that's the least we could do for them. And when I was flying over there, every other soldier had the right equipment and the right gear that they needed to be safe. Every other soldier didn't have the equipment necessary to return like I was blessed to do, safely, honorably, and soon, and that is a tragedy. We will never let that happen again. If I'm in the United States Congress, I will fight till I have no breath in my lungs to make sure that our nation's military has everything they need to be safe. And when they come home, Sarge, when they come home, Sergeant Green, when our soldiers come home, they should not have want of medical necessity. They should not have want for the economics of, being able to afford to go to college and to be afford to invest in their families. We don't need soldiers making decisions of whether to put bread on the table, and if they can put bread on the table, or whether they can continue serving our nation. That should never happen. And that's why reform policies that we've enacted, the GI Bill, one of the largest extensions of military benefits in our country. We just extended this a little while ago to make sure that your children are able to go to college under the GI benefits that would help put you through school. We want to make sure that our families and those military families that are coming back with the policies we've just enacted, you get veterans preference, that you are skilled, you've been trained, and you have the ability that probably many of us may not have with your training and the investment that the government has made into you. And those are the types of things that are going to make our country stronger in the long term, investing in families like that.
I demand equal time for Jim.
He did, he said, he responded.
I'd like to thank both of you for coming out tonight for this. I know this is your main event, Mr. Renacci. But again, I look around this room, where's the people of color? You say that you've been all over the district. I haven't seen you in my neighborhood. I live in the city, Canton. Where are you at in terms of civil rights and diversity? Because again, we are part of this district also. And I want to know where your positions are on the things that will affect the African American community and the community in the inner cities and stuff, because we're suffering out here.
Right.
As an example, I
Sure,
hear
you heard
what the
the
gentleman said about his
government
business
things,
investors and stuff.
I
for one, have done, from what he did as a business, I did it in
You're
the
doing
neighborhood.
everything wrong.
The problem with the neighborhoods is
I
that
know.
people flighted the neighborhoods and left them to these druggies. But I made an investment in my neighborhood because I wanted to show the children growing up that you don't have to sell drugs in order to be a part of the property. But the rules and regulations that are established in the inner city don't affect the ones in the suburbs. What is your position in regards to addressing those concerns? And again, I'm concerned about the civil rights and the diversity of your campaign in terms of why anybody of color should be in support of you as a congressman.
Well, I think I told you that I've traveled the district. I've actually been to downtown Canton. I've been all around the district.
Downtown Canton is not the neighborhood.
And I've attempted to meet, not sure what's going on here, but I've attempted to meet with his, I think you shut the other one.
Here, we'll just use this mic.
I've attempted to meet with as many people as I can, and I appreciate you being here, but I appreciate everybody being here. Because what I've said all along is we have a number of problems. But a lot of the problems you're talking about are local issues. And I'm also a firm believer that the federal government was, and our Constitution was based on freedom. And it was based on the freedoms that our number one goal of our military is freedom. We need to get our federal government out of the way. And we need to allow our local governments to become more involved in many of the issues you're talking about. I don't believe that these are federal issues to come down. I mean, I believe the federal government needs its number one goal. Its number one goal is to protect our freedoms. So to answer your question is, I believe a lot of things need to come back to the local level, and I believe things like you're talking about do need to go back to the local level. And they need to be looked at in the cities. I was a mayor of my community. I think those are important ways of looking at all that. And it's not the federal government's job.
Can I cover that?
Sure.
My concern is you said you need local government, but if it was but for the federal government, we wouldn't have had civil rights and diversity. But for the federal government, local governments are the ones that were holding us back. So you said you want to go back to that system of local government controlling the.
No, I said,
When
no.
you said local, you said you
I-
want to put it back under local. Local was the problem.
Right.
It took the federal government to come in and say, you can't discriminate for housing, you can't discriminate for jobs, you can't discriminate for education. It took the federal government to step in and do that. Where is the local government being in that fight?
What you're doing is you're talking about the past, and I agree with you. I'm talking about today.
Oh, it's gone away? Are you saying in 2010 we live in a society that doesn't have these still woes out there?
I'm saying in 2010, we have issues that we need to bring back to the local, whether it's schools, and all these issues need to come back to the local. It's not, the federal government cannot take care of what the federal government, I heard John Boehner say this the other day, the federal government's broke. It really is. And at some point in time, we need to get our house in order, but we need to make sure that the local governments and the state governments get involved and take care of local issues. Any other questions?
I support American civil rights movement, and I have voted accordingly in not only the state legislature, but in the federal government.
What's that done for you?
Say again?
You still say you've got problems. What's that done for you? You've got a very legitimate argument.
Well,
What's that done for you? You still got problems down there.
Yeah, we've talked about everything that we're doing for the American worker and American people, investing in our workforce, retraining folks, getting back up to speed, investing in education. These are things that are matter. I've been all throughout this district, in every corner of the district, even in portions that may not agree with me. And I stand shoulder to shoulder here with Mr. Renacci and telling you that I think that a strong civil rights movement is important for our country. We recognize our diversity, because in our diversity is where we find strength. It's where we find strength. Our diversity of opinions, our diversity of ideas, our diversity of race, our diversity of culture is what makes America the greatest experiment in democracy. When my grandparents came over here from Italy and Slovakia, when we came over from Italy and Slovakia, they had challenges, but they believed in working hard and persevering and giving back to the community. Those are the American values that I put my life on the line for this country. Those are the American values that continue to make us strong.
I have just a few comments here. I see an awful lot of problems. We had bankers that were involved in fraud, nobody's in jail. We have insurance companies in fraud, nobody's in jail. We have government motors building factories overseas in South Korea, building factories down in Mexico. We have problems with Arizona, with drugs coming across the border, with the State Department trying to prosecute the state of Arizona for human rights abuse. We have all these problems. We have Muslims that are trying to overthrow the United States. We have the Democratic Party backing radical Muslims. We have funding of radical Muslims going overseas, spreading their hate with money from the State Department.
Tax dollars.
With our tax dollars. Now, I'm a little bit upset. We thought that Barack Obama was going to be middle of the road, open. I don't think so.